Welcome to the Social Magnet Podcast. I'm Andrea Locascio. One phone call made me believe I just lost a friendship that had lasted 35 years. I was wrong. The phone call didn't end the friendship, it revealed something I hadn't been willing to see. I'll tell you what happened a little later, because that conversation taught me one of the most important lessons I've learned about friendship, trust, and human behavior. But first, who gets that vote in your life? Think about that for a minute. Who influences your decisions? Who encourages your dreams? Who quietly discourages them? Who celebrates your successes? And who secretly hopes you never succeed? Most of us spend our lives chasing careers, money, education, health, success, and even love. Yet very few of us ever stop to think about one of the greatest influences on our happiness: the people we allow closest to us. Today's episode isn't about making new friends, it's about understanding the people who already surround you. Because whether we realize it or not, the people closest to us slowly influence the person we're becoming. As children, we don't really choose our friends. They're usually the kids who live next door, the classmates who sit beside us, our teammates, our cousins, or simply the people life places in front of us. We don't choose our family members either. But eventually, something changes. As adults, we begin actively choosing who gets that vote in our lives, who we call when something wonderful happens, who we trust with our disappointments, who we ask for advice from, whose opinions really carry weight. Those people matter more than we often realize. They don't simply hear our dreams, they influence whether or not we continue believing in them ourselves. Many years ago, Jim Rohn said, "You are the average of the five people you spend the most time with." I've always believed there's a lot of truth in that. But over time, I realized I'd change one thing. I don't think the most important thing to look for is success. I think it's character, because success can change. Character usually doesn't. Character can lead us to success. Character determines how someone treats you when you're struggling. Character determines whether they celebrate your victories or secretly resent them. Character determines whether they're honest, whether they're loyal, whether they own their own mistakes, and whether they're genuinely kind. Those are the qualities that shape relationships. And ultimately, they shape us. Recently, I was accepted into an acting program, an acting company. Like most exciting news, I couldn't wait to share it. What happened next fascinated me. Some people celebrated with me immediately, others questioned the decision. Some encouraged me to dream even bigger. Some had no response at all. Others unintentionally planted doubt. None of those reactions were necessarily malicious, but they reminded me of something I've been observing for years. The people closest to us simply don't listen to our dreams. They influence whether we continue believing they're possible. That realization caused me to step back and ask myself a question: what qualities do I consistently admire in the people I trust most? After years of watching people, working on Wall Street, volunteering in my community, getting educated, building lifelong friendships, losing some, and strengthening others, simply paying attention to human behavior, I realized I kept coming back to the same five qualities. Not because anyone possesses them perfectly. That's impossible. None of us does. In fact, I'm still learning. I've made mistakes. I've been impulsive. I've said things I wish I could take back. So this isn't about finding perfect people. It's about surrounding yourself with people who genuinely strive to live by these qualities while doing your very best to practice them yourself. Because I believe these five qualities build trust, they build stronger friendships, and over time, they help us become better people. Those qualities are to be rational, loyal, objective and accountable, honest, and kind. Over the next few minutes, I'd like to share why each one matters to me and why I believe they matter in every meaningful relationship. So grab a pen and paper, grab your phone, whatever it is. I'm giving you an assignment at the end of the episode. Why I say rational. I don't mean someone who's highly educated. I don't even mean someone with a high IQ. And I certainly don't mean someone who's emotionless. I mean someone who can think clearly, especially when life becomes stressful. Someone who doesn't create unnecessary drama. Someone who pauses before reacting. Someone who thinks before they speak. Someone who remains calm when everyone else is panicking. I learned the value of that quality very early on, and I'm still practicing. The older I get, the more I realize that loyalty, next on the list, is one of the rarest qualities a person can possess. When I was younger, I gave my loyalty freely. Today, I believe loyalty needs to be earned. Real loyalty isn't agreeing with someone all the time, it isn't defending bad behavior, and it certainly isn't pretending someone never makes mistakes. Real loyalty is much quieter, much more powerful than that. It's wanting the very best for someone, even when they're no longer in the room. It's protecting their reputation when they have no idea you're doing it. It's celebrating their successes instead of secretly competing with them. It's encouraging them to pursue their dreams, even if those dreams take them somewhere you never imagined for yourself. Loyal people don't become smaller because someone else becomes bigger. They don't feel threatened by another person's success. They take genuine joy in watching the people they love succeed. I've also learned something else. Sometimes the people who cheer the loudest while you're standing beside them grow strangely quiet after you've walked away. Pay attention to that because character isn't revealed when everyone's watching. Character is revealed when no one is. One of the greatest gifts my parents ever gave me was belief. My father always encouraged me to pursue my singing and my music. Neither of my parents ever made me feel that my dreams were unrealistic or impossible. Instead, they made me believe that nothing was beyond my reaching for if I was willing to stick with it and work hard. Looking back, that belief may have been the greatest act of loyalty they ever showed me. They believed in me long before I had accomplished anything, long before there was anything to applaud. And that's what loyal people do. They don't simply celebrate your accomplishments, they believe in your potential, sometimes long before you can see it yourself. Those are the people worth holding on to. But loyalty becomes much harder to recognize when something goes wrong and things go awry, when feelings are hurt, when blame enters the room, when two people remember the very same moment completely differently. That's when loyalty is tested. That's when you discover whether someone is willing to step outside their own emotions and listen, seek understanding, and protect the relationship, or whether the friendship only worked when everything went their way. The third quality I value is being objective and accountable, because those two qualities often go hand in hand. Remember the phone call I mentioned at the beginning of this episode? It all started with a phone call from a friend. She told me that someone I'd known forever was upset about something just after we were all out for dinner together. I had no idea if what she was saying was true. I actually found it hard to believe. My first instinct was to debunk the idea, but that's never been me. So I told the friend I was on the phone with that I needed to call the other friend right then. I hung up with her and called my friend in question. I honestly thought she'd appreciate my concern. Instead, she accused both of us of gossiping about her. I was stunned. As we continued talking, I realized something much bigger was happening, though. Later, I found out that she had made a decision about our long term group of friends without ever even talking to me about it. It wasn't about welcoming someone new into the group, it was about realizing we no longer viewed friendship the same way. I remember hanging up the phone thinking, this 35-year friendship is now gone. Looking back, again, the phone call didn't end the friendship. It revealed something I hadn't been willing to see. We weren't as close as I ever believed we were. And more importantly, I realized how difficult it can be to have a healthy relationship with someone who isn't willing to step outside their own perspective. So, what does it really mean to be objective? It means having the ability to step outside of your own emotions and honestly ask yourself, could I be wrong? And then honestly ask yourself, could it be me this time? Even when it feels so uncomfortable. Accountability takes that one step further. It's having the courage to say, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. And not I'm sorry, but I could have handled that better. Those words aren't signs of weakness, they're signs of maturity and humility. I've learned that every disagreement has at least two perspectives. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong, and sometimes the truth lives somewhere in the middle. The healthiest relationships I ever experienced weren't because people avoided conflict. It was because both people cared more about understanding than about winning. I've also learned that the quickest way to stop growing is to believe you're always right. The people I admire most aren't defensive. They're curious. They like to ask questions. They listen. They're willing to change their minds when new information comes along. And when they make a mistake, they own it. No excuses, no blame, just pure accountability. In my experience, those are the people who earn trust the fastest. Because when someone is willing to look in the mirror before pointing a finger, you know they're more interested in protecting the relationship than protecting their ego. And that brings me to the next quality, one that can strengthen a relationship or quietly destroy it. The fourth quality I value is honesty. Not brutal honesty, not honesty that's used as an excuse to hurt people. Real, genuine honesty. The kind that's rooted in respect. The kind that builds trust instead of destroying it. I've learned that the strongest friendships aren't built because two people always agree. They're built because both people know they can tell each other the truth without ever fearing the friendship will end. Honesty isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it means having a difficult conversation. Sometimes it means admitting you've been wrong. And sometimes it means saying something that another person may not want to hear because you care about them too much to remain silent. But honesty also requires timing, compassion, humility. There's a big difference between speaking to someone and speaking with them. Honest people don't use truth as a weapon, they use it as a bridge to create understanding, to solve problems, to strengthen relationships. I've found that people who avoid honest conversations often create much bigger problems for themselves later. Misunderstandings grow, assumptions replace facts, resentment quietly builds until eventually people aren't arguing about the original issue anymore. They're arguing for months or even years about things which were never even said. To me, honesty isn't about winning an argument, it's about protecting the relationship. Because once trust disappears, it's one of the hardest things in the world to rebuild. And that's exactly why honesty, when it's paired with kindness, becomes one of the greatest gifts we can offer another person. So, what was it my parents were trying to teach me all those years? It was kindness, not politeness, not avoiding difficult conversations, real, genuine kindness. Growing up, my mother had one saying she repeated over and over again. She'd look at me and say, Andrea, do as Jesus would do. And I'd laugh and answer, but Ma, I'm not Jesus. At the time, I thought it was just one of her favorite expressions. I couldn't have been more wrong. It took me decades to understand what she was really trying to teach me. Part of that was because I struggled with my own faith. Part of it was simply because some lessons only make sense after you've lived a little longer. Today, I realize she wasn't asking me to be perfect. She was asking me to think beyond myself, to choose compassion before judgment, to choose kindness. When I think about my mother, I don't first remember something she said. I remember how she made me feel. Whenever she hugged me, I felt safe. I felt loved. I felt like I truly belonged. To this day, she still sends birthday cards and holiday cards, even when she's going to see us later that same day. Most people would probably ask, why bother? Because to her, It's another opportunity to let someone know I was thinking about you. She also taught me something else I'll never forget. For years, my parents employed a wonderful woman named Rosa. The truth is, Rosa was not a very good housekeeper. They could have replaced her. Instead, they hired someone else to do the heavier cleaning while allowing Rosa to continue working. It cost them a lot of money, but compassion mattered more. My father taught me the kindness in a completely different way. He was an incredibly talented oil painter. He taught me how to paint. But painting wasn't even the greatest gift he gave me. Belief was. Every dream I ever brought home, no matter how unrealistic it sounded, he believed in me. He never laughed. He never discouraged me. He simply believed. Looking back, I think every child deserves to know what that feels like. Because when someone believes in you, they quietly give you permission to believe in yourself. Over the years, I've come to believe something else. One of the easiest ways to understand another person is to picture them as a child. Every adult you meet was once a little boy or a little girl trying to figure life out. It doesn't excuse bad behavior, but sometimes it explains it. And sometimes understanding changes everything. One thing I hope you'll remember long after this podcast ends is that kindness rarely announces itself. Its greatest impact often happens in moments we never even notice. We spend so much time competing with one another, especially women. But what if, instead, we encouraged one another? What if someone else's success didn't threaten us, but inspired us? To me, being kind means not having malicious motives. It means wanting to give rather than to take. Years after graduating from the Ursuline School, something happened that caught me completely off guard. A woman I graduated with named Genevieve sent me a message on Facebook. We were never close friends. We simply knew each other. I opened her message, I read it, and before I reached the end, I found myself getting emotional. She wrote, Andrea, you were friends with everyone. You made me feel like I belonged. I had no idea, not the slightest idea that she felt this way. And that's the one thing about kindness. You almost never know when you've changed someone's life, even in a small way. Sometimes you never find out, which makes me wonder how many people have quietly changed our life without them even knowing it? How many people are carrying our kindness with them today? Well, we've long since forgotten the moment. That's why I believe we almost have an obligation to make people feel seen, to make people feel valued, to make people feel loved, because we never really know what someone else is carrying. So before we end today, I'd like you to go back to the homework assignment I gave you. Take a deep look at the people around you. Really observe. Are they rational? Are they loyal? Are they objective and accountable? Are they honest? And are they kind? And then ask yourself one last question. Am I all of those things? Because the people you surround yourself with will shape your life. So choose them wisely. I'm Andrea Locascio. Thank you for joining me. You're listening to the Social Magnet Podcast, and I'll see you next time.